The murders on the Zagarella farmstead in Sardinia, Italy, were some of the most brutal and inexplicable the island had ever seen. And as is often the case in murder cases later intercepted by the SCP Foundation, the words of the late great pulp mystery writer Jim Thompson applies. There is only one plot. Things are not as they seem. The grisly scene was first discovered when the farm's owner, Paolo, failed to meet with his brother Arturo at a meetup they'd planned at a downtown cafe in Cagliari. Paolo had never missed one of their spirited espresso chats before, so Arturo jumped in his pickup and drove down to the farmstead. Given the nature of the anomaly, we're tremendously lucky that Arturo survived long enough to reach the Cagliari Police Department and tell them of the horrors he'd seen on the farm. Naturally, the police thought he'd gone insane. And whenever law enforcement officials hear a story that they think is insane, one of the Foundation's moles embedded in their precinct will begin to pay extra attention. Those are almost always the best leads. What follows are the details that Arturo relayed in his statement. We've been able to fill out with forensic evidence and the knowledge we've since gained from our understanding of the anomaly in play here. The statement began with Arturo driving up the long cobbled road towards the farm, an extensive mountainside property that had made Paolo and his family extremely wealthy fixtures of the local community. Everything seemed quiet, almost eerily so, on the approach. Arturo was able to recall a light breeze because he could see the fabric and straw billowing on a nearby scarecrow that silently oversaw the farm. By this point, he'd already sent Paolo several texts. After a few calls over a number of hours weren't returned, Arturo began to feel a growing sense of concern. He parked his car outside the gates and wandered inside using a spare key. It didn't take him long to realize that something was terribly wrong when he approached the farmhouse. Several windows smashed open and the front door seemingly rammed in. It looked at face value like the textbook sign of some kind of violent home invasion. Many in Sardinia know to fear the anomaly sarda, loosely organized groups of bandits who run kidnapping for ransom rackets in the more rural areas of the island. Surely a wealthy farmer and his family would be a perfect target for the kind of bandit who wants a real return on investment. This was Arturo's instinct, until he found his sister-in-law Adela laying dead in the living room. The sight of it almost immediately caused Paolo to vomit, both from the after effects of the violence and the sheer level of decomposition that the body was already in. Skinned alive with maggots, the fetid air around it humming with thousands of flies. Thick, brown corpse ichor seeped into the carpet. He'd never seen anything like this in his 50 years on planet Earth, and he hoped to any god that resided above that he'd never see anything like it again. The way that Adela had been killed, surely even the Camorra wouldn't stoop so low. Her body was riddled with countless holes. Not bullet wounds, not stab wounds, just tiny holes. A death by 1,000 punctures. Had someone gone at the poor woman with an ice pick? Of course, if he wasn't so focused on the grisly nature of the murder and the rot, Arturo might have noticed other strange things in the room, like the fact that the surrounding carpet around Adela's body was absolutely covered in chicken feathers. He staggered out of the house, woozy and horrified, the world spinning around in his head. But you know what won't make you woozy with misery and horror? Subscribing to SCP Explained, where we've got the largest collection of fascinating anomalous explanations anywhere on the internet. And if you hit that bell to turn on notifications, you'll never miss one of our videos. Like Arturo misses his brother and his family. Speaking of Arturo, at this point, he probably should have cut his losses and made a mad dash away from the property. But that simply wasn't the kind of guy that Arturo was. Even amidst all these horrors, he was a man of focus, dedication, and sheer willpower. He refused to leave this farm until he could guarantee the fate of his brother and the rest of the family on the farmstead. How could he have known that this would put him head to head with an impossible horror? It wasn't long after he started wandering through the farm in a daze that he saw a herd of sheep up in a nearby pasture. He didn't want to see just how many, in case it made him fall asleep when there were still critical investigations to perform. But something was immediately obviously odd about them all. They were using their teeth to grip onto each other's wool and tear it off in great chunks. Then they piled into what seemed like a massive mountain of white fluff. Why were they doing that? Some kind of strange disease? But given everything he'd already seen, there was no point in dwelling on such comparatively mild strangeness. He headed for the stables, knowing that Paolo had always been an avid equestrian. Perhaps if not his brother, he could at least find some kind of clue as to what horrible thing occurred here. The inside of the stable was dark and stank of the same putrefying rotten meat as the living room did. This time he saw the stable boy laying rotten in the hay, alive with insects, though that was the only sense he was really alive in. Just like Adela, he looked like he'd been dead for weeks. It didn't make any sense. Really, he could only be identified as the stable boy through his clothes. His face looked like it had been completely pounded in with hammers. Or maybe with hooves. Arturo heard a disconcerting whinny as he looked up to see several horses gathered in the dark at the end of the stable, watching him with their big, wet eyes. Step by step, the horses, in unison, began advancing towards him down the length of the bar. Clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. He backed out of the stable and slammed the door behind him, hearing the horses suddenly speed up towards the barrier. He decided wisely not to stick around for whatever was going to happen next. Surely nothing that could have been good. But on his way past the pig pens, where no smell could be detected beyond the manure and no sound heard above the horrific chorus of squeals, Arturo couldn't help but notice something. A piece of red fabric standing out amongst the writhing mess of pink bodies, just like the fabric of his nephew Carmine's favorite t-shirt. His worst suspicions are confirmed when he sees a few scraps of chewed-up denim laying around in the mud, too. He can hardly stifle his tears as he runs out of the sty. What's happened here? This doesn't seem like the bandits at all. There's an almost cursed pressure in the air, like the very atmosphere has changed. It's become a terrifying and dangerous place on some unknowable fundamental level. The question is no longer whether he can find his brother out here. Now he just needs to get out alive, if that option is even on the table anymore. And he hasn't even seen the cows yet. But that's what comes next. Bred by humanity to be one of the most docile creatures imaginable, a walking factor for beef, leather, and milk, pumped with hormones to grow large beyond all reason, and bred to stand around all day in empty grassy plains, passive and tame. But that doesn't sound at all like the kind of creature that Arturo sees out on the farm that day. The cows are attacking one of their own, like ruthless organic slaughterhouse equipment. It seems so vicious, so coordinated and efficient, and the one being attacked isn't even attempting to resist. And in trying to avert his eyes from all this, Arturo's gaze instead falls upon the bull in the pasture, huffing smoke out of its huge nostrils. But he's not looking at the creature's jet-black hide or the body made of pure muscle underneath it. He's just looking at the bull's horns, the left one specifically. The one that's impaled through the top of a human skull like some obscene Gothic fashion statement. Arturo doesn't recognize the skull, but he recognizes the hat it's wearing, his brother's favorite New York Yankees hat, the very one that Arturo had brought him that one time he went on a stateside vacation. He'd never been one for jumping to conclusions, but as the tears streamed down his cheeks, it seemed safest to assume that his brother could be counted among the dead, just like the rest of his poor, innocent family. What the hell had happened? How and why had they become victims of their own farm animals? This was the question that Arturo would never receive an answer to, no matter what happened. Will Arturo get off the farm alive? Was a question he still had to write the answer for. Before the bull could even charge him, Arturo was blindsided by a swarm of squawking chickens, beaks and claws bloody. He managed to dodge the worst of it, only to see several goats, horns bared, charging brutally towards him, hard heads ready to shatter bone on contact. In short, it's gone from about 30 to 100 faster than anyone could predict. And now, all bets are off. Arturo did the only thing he could do. Run. Out of this farm, out of this area, out of the damn country if he could. But as he ran, more animals seemed to frantically join the chase. Horses, pigs, sheep, their minds seemingly all scrambled, yet unified by a single-minded rage. He felt like he was in some kind of deranged horror movie adaptation of Old MacDonald Had a Farm. It'd be almost comical if his brother and his brother's family hadn't already been massacred in this. Just being exposed to it was almost enough to reduce him to gibbering insanity. Arturo barely made it to the gate, with the horde chasing him, bloody and terrified. He could hear the terrifying cacophony of thundering hooves and trotters, the flapping wings and shrill, infuriated beasts. He leapt into the driver's seat and stabbed the keys into the ignition. He sped down the bumpy road out of the farmstead as the scarecrow on the edge of the farm seemed to almost watch, the king of his own little kingdom. After Arturo told his story and the bodies were discovered, the SCP Foundation intercepted the case, Every bystander who'd been exposed to the whole situation was given a course of amnestic treatment. It was now up to the Foundation to simply unravel what had happened here amidst the horrors, and the answer was so much stranger than even some of the Foundation's most seasoned researchers could imagine. One of the first questions one should ask in a situation like this is, how had a grisly scene like this not been discovered sooner? An entire family being wiped out by their own animals on a popular, successful local farm with a number of active business contracts. It was finding the answer to that made the Foundation understand what a truly bizarre anomaly they were looking at here. Nobody noticed that the family was dead because all of the orders were still being fulfilled among the farm's clients. Thanks to the nature of the anomaly, the animals of the farm were running it all by themselves. Sheeps sheared wool off one another and managed to pack it by delivery day. Chickens strategically laid their eggs to make them far easier to collect. Cows milked each other into buckets, and in an action not entirely dissimilar to ritualistic sacrifice, would pull apart one of their own sisters and somehow package the meat for sale. All of this produce was prepped and ready for the collectors on all the appropriate days, and all of the payments were automatic and digital. Nobody had ever noticed something was amiss. Technically, this wasn't a farm without a farmer, just a farm with an extremely unconventional farmer. The Foundation only discovered what was truly going on when they removed the tattered old scarecrow on the outer wall in order to fix up the containment perimeter, assuming at first that either all the animals on the ground of the Zagrella farm itself were the nexus of the place's anomalous qualities. But when the scarecrow was removed, all the animals on the farm slipped into a kind of vegetative state, a form of unconsciousness that they could not independently wake up from. Until the scarecrow was placed back into the perimeter of the farm, at which point all the animals got back up and continued their anomalous behavioral patterns from before. Any humans who entered the farm's perimeter were exposed to an immediate attack. It's as though as soon as the anomalous scarecrow is placed on the premises, it scoops the mind out of every animal in attendance and replaces each one with a kind of node of its own consciousness, galvanized around its grand intention. And that grand intention seems simply to be doing more farming. As a kind of agricultural puppet master, the scarecrow wants to do little more than cultivate his various products with absolute self-contained efficiency. And any attempt by humans to intrude on his process will inevitably face horror and violence for their trouble. After all, nobody likes a backseat driver. These days, for the sake of safety, SCP-872 is kept inside cold storage at a classified Foundation containment sector, in order to prevent its anomalous effects from causing any harm. It's kept at least 2 kilometers away from any concentrated livestock populations, with 10 members of security present at any given time during observation periods. In some ways, it's a terrible shame. Sure, he may have killed people, but the scarecrow just wanted to farm. And now to the SCP Foundation. He's the livestock. Now check out SCP-682, Ways SCP Foundation Try to Kill the Hard-to-Destroy Reptile, and SCP-2746, Redacted is Dead, for more.